Number 10. Batman and Scooby-Doo. Batman and the gang of meddling kids from Mystery Incorporated actually have quite a long history together, teaming up during the days when Batman cartoons and Scooby-Doo cartoons were both being made by Hanna-Barbera for the odd animated special. Years later, this pairing would make its way into the pages of the comics, with the Dark Knight going on several adventures with the gang. It makes a certain kind of sense. I mean, Batman and the gang are all detectives, so they have a lot of intersecting interests. The comic book series also does a good job of going with a more Silver Age-y take on Batman, so there isn't as much of a clash in tone when Batman pulls Scooby snacks out of his utility belt. But there is still something kind of strange about the idea that Batman would get so stumped on a case that he would call in not another detective hero like, say, Barry Allen, but would go straight to a bunch of teenage jazz cabbage enthusiasts who live in a van with their dog. Number 9. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Ghostbusters. When Donatello of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles created an interspatial teleportation unit, he asked his brothers Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael to help him test the device's capabilities. They go through the portal with their friends April O'Neil and Casey Jones and discover that the device has transported them to a different New York, the one featured in the Ghostbusters universe. They are immediately put face to face with an evil ghost who of course is immune to their attacks and captures and possesses Casey. Thankfully, they are soon saved by everyone's favorite group of paranormal exterminators, Venkman, Winston, Egon, and Ray, the Ghostbusters. The two groups team up and the combination works better than you might expect. There's a certain joy to seeing Venkman start to get on Raph's nerves, while Winston and Leonardo bond over how difficult it is to be the most normal one on a team. Plus, seeing Leonardo swap his bow staff for a proton pack is something I never knew I always wanted to see. Number 8. Superman and Muhammad Ali. This one is perhaps the most iconic of the weird team-ups ever put to panel. One day, Muhammad Ali is in Metropolis playing basketball with some local kids, and Lois, Jimmy, and Clark set out to get an interview with him. Just as they are about to begin their interview, an alien shows up and requests the greatest champion of Earth to fight in an alien boxing match. He has an armada of ships and is going to blow up Earth if they don't accept the challenge. Clark excuses himself and Superman shows up offering to fight. Ali retorts that he will fight the aliens as he is the greatest fighter on Earth. Superman points out that that is a stupid plan because he's, you know, Superman, but Ali reminds him that he's, you know, Muhammad Ali. The alien tells them that they will fight and the winner will face the alien champion. Ali and Superman go to the Fortress of Solitude to train, and Ali teaches Supes some of his moves before they are interrupted by the aliens, who inform them that the fight will take place on their homeworld, which has a red sun, meaning Superman won't have any powers. Ali points out that Superman is in serious trouble. The two have a boxing match, and Ali KOs Superman after a few rounds and goes on to fight the alien champion. It turns out that Superman and Ali fixed the fight, and while Ali fights, Superman is taking out the alien fleet. Ali wins the match and the Earth is saved. Later on Earth, Ali reveals that he has figured out Superman's secret identity, and the two shake hands as Ali declares, "Superman, we are the greatest." It's a weird story and kinda goofy, but it has become such a classic, and the dynamic between Superman and Muhammad Ali is actually so well done that it is worth reading. Number 7. The Avengers meet David Letterman. In Avengers number 239, Wonder Man is having a bit of a problem. He has been trying to make it as an actor, but it hasn't been working out. His agent is aware of his status as a reserve Avenger and books Wonder Man on David Letterman, claiming that he will be accompanied by some of the other Avengers. Wonder Man reaches out to Vision, who arranges for himself, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Beast, and Black Widow to join Wonder Man on the late-night talk show appearance. The villain, Fabian Stanowitz, otherwise known as the Meccano Marauder, sees the promo and decides that he will also be attending. The Avengers go on the show, and Dave interviews the group, getting the bombshell that Beast is leaving the Avengers to start the Defenders, but the interview is interrupted by an attack from Fabian's machines, while Paul Schaefer keeps the band playing to keep the crowd from panicking. Fabian sits down for an interview with Letterman, surrounding them with a force field shield so they won't be interrupted by the Avengers or the machines. Dave then uses his classic giant doorknob prop to knock out the villain, saving the day. Wonder Man is thrilled that his heroic exploits will be shown on television, but when the show is set to air, it is interrupted by a special news bulletin and no one gets to see it. Number 6. The X-Men meet the crew of the Enterprise. Captain's log. Stardate 4740.5. The crew of the Enterprise came across an odd alien ship. They scanned it for life and saw that it was carrying 7 life forms that sensors indicated were near human. Before more information could be gathered, the ship exploded, and a giant creature calling himself the Gladiator appeared and punched the Enterprise. As the engineer, Mr. Scott, attempted to repair the damage to the shields, a group of stowaways who had beamed off the destroyed ship at the last moment came aboard. They called themselves the X-Men. So the X-Men had set off to save the galaxy and were now hiding on the Enterprise, very confused as to how they had ended up in the future. Gambit was injured and Beast took him to the ship's sickbay to find treatment. It was here that Dr. McCoy met Dr. McCoy. The remaining X-Men were discovered by Mr. Spock, who incapacitated Wolverine with the Vulcan nerve pinch and took the team to meet Captain Kirk so they could work together to defeat the villains. This is a fun story filled with some cool moments like the aforementioned Spock and Wolverine fight, as well as some fun character moments like Kirk trying to hit on Jean Grey. But the X-Men and Enterprise crew are an odd pair to pitch together, and the entire affair does feel pretty weird. Number 5. The Punisher meets Slim Shady. Getting into the really weird team-ups, we have the time that Frank Castle met Marshall Mathers. In this story, Eminem is leaving a concert with his security when they come across a strange man in a skull shirt in the alley. They pull their guns on him and get absolutely blown away while M makes a break for it. He's rescued by his childhood friend, the Barracuda, who helps him hide from Castle. When Punisher gets too close, Slim Shady beats him up and shoots him. Barracuda then takes out Eminem, and when he wakes up, he's on a boat tied back to back with the Punisher. Punisher explains that he was trying to protect Eminem and only took out his bodyguards because they pulled guns on him and probably all had rap sheets anyways. Barracuda explains that the Parents Music Council has hired him to kill Shady because they think his music is corrupting the youth. He throws M off the side of the boat, but the water is frozen and he manages to get away. He finds an ice fisherman, takes his chainsaw, and returns to the boat to save the Punisher. After freeing Frank, Punisher leaves Eminem stranded on the ice with a phone to call for help as he sets off to take out the Parents Music Council. After all, hiring a contract killer is a serious crime. What? This book is insane! Not just for the premise, but the fact that the Punisher doesn't do anything except get beaten up and later rescued by Eminem. But it isn't the weirdest Punisher crossover. More on that later. Number 4, Spider-Man and the cast of SNL. Live from New York, it's Spider Day Night Live! Starring Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Bill Murray, Lorraine Newman, and Gilda Radner. In Marvel Team-Up number 74, Spider-Man got to team up with the classic Saturday Night Live cast in one of the weirdest team-ups in the Wall Crawlers history. Peter and MJ are attending a filming of Saturday Night Live, but little do they know that the show is about to be interrupted by the Silver Samurai, whose magic ring has been sent to John Belushi by accident due to his SNL Samurai character being mistaken for the Silver Samurai. Thugs try to take over the show, but the cast keeps the show going while taking out the thugs with the help of Spider-Man, while the two samurai face off backstage. It is extra weird because the celebrity host is Stan Lee, and the SNL cast are dressing up as Marvel characters. But in a world where Marvel heroes are real, what exactly is Stan Lee famous for? Number 3, Jimmy Olsen and Don Rickles. In Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 141, written by Jack Kirby of all people, Jimmy teams up with the Golden Guardian and Goody Rickles, the superhero who just happens to look like the insult comic and Mr. Potato Head actor Don Rickles. They are poisoned by Intergang and have to find a cure before they explode. They end up at an office where the real Don Rickles is hanging out and just starts slowly going nuts as superhero hijinks take place around him. Eventually the heroes are cured, but Rickles is taken away by the police after claiming that he is going to explode explode in an effort to get away from Jimmy and his gang. It is a difficult story to follow, and wouldn't make this list if it weren't for the weird detail of Don Rickles having a superhero who is not related to him, but is named Goody Rickles and just happens to look exactly like him. That's just all kinds of strange. Number 2, The Punisher meets Archie. In a crossover that started out as a joke between the publishers of the two characters, a criminal who looks remarkably like Archie is being chased by the Punisher. He escapes to Riverdale, and the Punisher pursues him there. Archie is up to his usual hijinks, trying to date both Betty and Veronica, when a bunch of feds, mistaking him for his criminal doppelganger, take him away. They are attacked by the Punisher, who realizes his mistake and goes after the double, who has taken Veronica to the town's sock hop. Punisher goes to the dance and is mistaken for a chaperone by the teachers. Things go off the rails when the villain takes Veronica hostage and a shootout breaks out at the dance. The bad guy gets away with Ronnie, and Archie has to team up with Frank to take him out. Archie starts keeping a war journal, and Frank gets a nice Riverdale sweater as a gift, and together they save Veronica and stop the villain, who they tie to a giant balloon and let fly away, presumably so he will fly into the air and lose oxygen and die. As if all of this wasn't weird enough, the story ends with Professor X informing Wolverine that he has to go after the most dangerous mutant alive, Jughead. Number 1, Green Lantern and Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders has shown up in DC Comics stories a few times, having traveled the multiverse and hired Captain Cold and Mirror Master to work in his restaurants. But his weirdest story is when he teamed up with Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern. In this story, the Colonel is working with Ferris Air to test that his new packaging for his Zinger chicken sandwich will protect it for interstellar travel, as he wants to bring his food across the universe. He enlists the help of Green Lantern to help him deliver the food, and Hal agrees. As Hal tells him, every member of the Green Lantern Corps is working on this project. Meaning somewhere a planet is being attacked by Darkseid and the Lanterns are delivering chicken sandwiches. The sandwiches are all stolen by the Orange Lantern Larfleeze, and Hal creates a KFC themed Green Lantern ring for the Colonel so they can go after the sandwiches. Sanders attacks Larfleeze with a drumstick construct, and Larfleeze admits that the Zinger chicken sandwich is the only thing that has ever satisfied his unending longing and hunger. Sanders uses his ring to create the first KFC on the planet Okara and lets Larfleeze sign on as a franchisee, assuming that the Orange Lantern can complete the training program to get his cooking to the Colonel's strict standards. This book is so weird. It's like those old Twinkie ads where Flash would defeat Weather Wizard with the delicious taste of Hostess Twinkie cakes, but instead of being one page long, it's the entire comic. It's so weird.
Number 10, Speeding Bullets. Basically a multiversal DC Elseworld story that answers the question, what if Superman didn't just have powers but was also rich? That's basically what is going on here in Speeding Bullets. In this story, Superman wasn't raised by the Kents, but instead was taken in and adopted by the Waynes, and he becomes, you guessed it, Bruce Wayne. After the death of Thomas and Martha, Bruce becomes Batman, but the difference is this version of Batman has tech, money, smarts, and superpowers. Lex also becomes a mess of a villain in this world. While still being Superman's nemesis, he's also Batman's nemesis rolled into one, with an extra little dash of Penguin, just for good measure I guess. So here we get a villain who is Lex, Joker, and the Penguin all in one. Oh goody, just what none of us necessarily wanted or needed. And yet, we got it. This also doesn't do much to enhance his motivation for villainy, which, like his identity, is also kind of all over the place. Still, the premise behind this Elseworld story is pretty cool, but unfortunately it doesn't add enough when it comes to offering a twist or different perspective to either the Superman or Batman mantle. Number 9, Batman and Captain America. A gloriously weird and awesome comic. This DC multiversal story also happens to be a DC Marvel crossover issue featuring Batman, his sidekick Robin, and Captain America and his sidekick Bucky. Both Cap and Batman end up joining together and then swapping sidekicks. Their villains also seem to have a team up as Red Skull and Joker come together, but this is also the famous issue that Joker insists that Red Skull is too evil even for him. He may be a criminal lunatic, but after all, he's an American criminal lunatic, and he can't stand by when it comes to abiding by Red Skull's history and motivations. So not only do we get to see some great team-ups, but we also get to see a full-out fight break out between these two iconic villains. Thanks, John Byrne. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love Elseworld stories and all of the weird, wacky things that go on in the multiverse when it comes to just alternate worlds, let us know by giving this video a thumbs up, and hey, maybe we can do some more Elseworlds lists for you. Cause yeah, there's lots of kooky stories out there. Number 8. The Superman Monster. Frankenstein, but make it Superman. There are lots of retellings of classic tales when we look into the realm of Elseworlds, and the story of Frankenstein is not one that is left untouched. Actually, I feel like this story gets interpreted a few times throughout the Elseworlds stories. I feel like I've seen at least 3 different versions of Frankenstein retold in Elseworlds. I still have yet to see Dr. Seuss retellings though in the world of DC, which are some classic kids tales that do eke their way surprisingly into Marvel at times. In the Superman Monster, Lex Luthor takes the role of creator and Superman ends up as his monster. You might think this sounds familiar considering it's also kind of the premise for the main continuity origin story of Bizarro, but this creation, while starting out similar to Bizarro, eventually goes full-on hero and full-on Superman by the end of it. That means in this story of Frankenstein, the creator ends up the monster, while the monster ends up the hero. What a twist. Number 7. Justice Riders. Because it's an inevitability that at some point, we have to turn to the Wild West for inspiration when it comes to an Elseworld story. We've gotta go there at some point. And so we have Justice Riders. Justice Riders reimagines the DC universe as existing during the time of the Wild West and adapts the characters to kind of fit their surroundings somewhat. As such, Wonder Woman becomes a Texan-sounding sheriff, and Martian Manhunter gets to sport a poncho and a cowboy hat. Which honestly, this is one you might want to check out just for that, cause that's great. This is the Wild West, baby. There are also plenty of shootouts and bar brawls, some with cyborg enemies involved. As ridiculous as this premise is, I will say it's executed well and it also looks fantastic, so.
Number 10. The Hood. He dropped out of school and took up a life of crime in an attempt to provide for his mother. One night, while attempting to rob a warehouse, he was attacked by a cloaked demon who he shot, seemingly to death. Robbins decided to take a souvenir and stole the demon's boots and cloak. He soon found that the demonic clothing gave him supernatural powers, and he became the supervillain known as the Hood. He managed to use these powers to create a criminal empire, while all the heroes were busy fighting each other during the Civil War. The cloak's powers turned out to be from the demon Dormammu, who used the Hood in his plans to kill Doctor Strange, which all failed. The Hood tangled with several heroes, including Professor X and the Red Hulk, before eventually being defeated by Hawkeye, who made a deal with Count Nefaria to take away the Hood's powers. The Hood became obsessed with getting his powers back, eventually taking a comatose Spider-Man hostage in an effort to force Black Cat to get him his cloak back. This backfired when the cloak the Black Cat gave him turned out to actually be a demon bag, which ate Robbins, bringing his criminal career to a close. Number 9. Hammerhead. A former mob hitman whose skull was shattered in a brawl, Hammerhead's skull was reinforced with a steel alloy plate, which he uses to crash through walls and headbutt Spider-Man. As if that wasn't odd enough, because the last thing he saw before getting his head smashed in was a poster for a 20s gangster film, Hammerhead has taken on the persona of a 20s gangster. He first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 114, where he was involved in a gang war with Dr. Octopus. Hammerhead continued to tangle with Spider-Man for years, eventually having his brain transferred into a robotic adamantium skeleton by Mr. Negative. Number 8. Typhoid Mary. So this character's origin may be a bit triggering for victims of So if that's you, please feel free to skip ahead to the next entry. Okay, so as a child, Mary Walker was continuously SA'd by her father. This caused her to develop a secondary persona named Typhoid, who could defend her from her father. This persona had mutant powers such as telekinesis, telepathy, and most notably, pyrokinesis, the ability to control fire. The meek and mild Mary was put in an institution, but was later broken out by Typhoid. She worked as an actress for a time before eventually working in a masked Matt Murdock eventually came to confront a criminal, but was attacked by the women who were working there. In the ensuing fight, Mary was accidentally pushed out the window and was presumed dead by the other women and Murdock. She survived the fall, but developed another alter named Bloody Mary, who vowed to never be hurt by a man again. Typhoid Mary has spent the years since struggling for control with her various alters and working as a gun for hire for criminals such as the Kingpin. She has developed additional alters over the years, such as Walker, who functions somewhat as a moderator between the alters, and Mutant Zero, an operative working for the Initiative. Number 7. Great White Shark. Warren White was the Bernie Madoff of Gotham City, embezzling millions of dollars and destroying the pension funds of several of its inhabitants. Nicknamed the Great White Shark, Warren thought he had gotten off easy when he used his money and influence to cop an insanity plea, and was placed in a mental institution rather than a prison. Unfortunately for him, that mental institution was Arkham Asylum. Warren was considered the new fish in the asylum, and quickly became the punching bag for all the inmates. The stress of this eventually began to drive him insane. This culminated when Jane Doe locked him in Mr. Freeze's cell, causing him to be disfigured by frostbite. His skin was turned a pale shade of white. He lost a few fingers, his ears, his nose, his hair, and his lips. Deciding in his madness to lean into the gimmick, White filed his teeth to sharp points and embraced the identity of the Great White Shark. When Arkham was taken over by demons, Shark realized that he would likely go to hell when he died. So he made a deal with the demons that when he did go to hell, he would be spared the suffering and would instead get to torture all the inmates in the asylum who had made his life a living hell. He became one of Gotham's most notorious crime bosses, running his operations from his cell in Arkham in order to avoid suspicion. Number 6. Absorbing Man. After the death of his mother, Carl Creel's father became abusive towards him, eventually kicking him out to live on the street when he eventually tried to fight back. In order to survive, Creel engaged in petty theft to support himself while building his career as a boxer. He found some success in this field, and in an interesting turn of fate, was actually the boxer that Daredevil's father, Batlin Jack Murdoch, was supposed to lose to in a fixed boxing match. Murdoch refused to throw the fight, defeated Crusher, and as a result was killed on the orders of the criminal the Fixer. Creel eventually became an enforcer for the Owl before eventually being arrested. While serving his sentence, he was chosen by Loki to be a pawn in one of his schemes against Thor. Loki spiked the inmate's water with Asgardian herbs that granted him the power to absorb the properties of any element he touched. He used his powers to absorb the powers and properties of Mjolnir, Thor's magical hammer, and was able to successfully take on the God of Thunder, although he was eventually defeated in a rematch. Number 5. Two-Face. Harvey eventually became the district attorney of Gotham and became essential in the efforts to reclaim the city from its mob influence. One day in court, Dent was interrogating a mob boss by the name of Salvatore Maroni, who threw a vial of acid in Harvey's face. The acid deformed the left side of Harvey's face, and the shock of this, combined with his underlying mental health issues, caused the district attorney to become the villain Two-Face. Two-Face is obsessed with chance as well as the number 2, often committing crimes that relate to the number. He uses a two-headed silver dollar, with one side scarred to reflect his own deformity, to determine whether or not to commit his crimes or murder his victims. Number 4. The Jester. After years of struggling, the egotistical actor was cast in a production of Cyrano de Bergerac, but his performance was not well received as he was booed by audience members and panned by critics and fired after the show's opening night. As all actors do, he eventually went insane, and with the help of the Tinkerer became the supervillain known as the Jester. He has gone on several bizarre crime sprees, such as when he used fake newscasts to convince people that JFK was alive and that the Vietnam War never occurred. He has tangled with Daredevil several times over the years, although he did retire for a time after successfully impersonating a famous actor named Benedict LaForge, and performing the role of Cyrano on TV in Daredevil number 218. Number 3. Killer Moth. When Drury Walker saw that the criminal element of Gotham City was being terrorized into submission by Batman, he realized that someone could make a lot of money by becoming the anti-Batman. Someone who the criminals could call upon in their hour of need to protect them from the Batman. Despite his best efforts, Killer Moth failed to be taken seriously as a villain, being laughed at by Gotham's underworld and being considered more of a nuisance than anything else by Batman. He is notable for being the first villain that Batgirl ever apprehended after he attempted attempted to kidnap Bruce Wayne from a costume party where Barbara Gordon, who was dressed in a Batman-themed costume, defeated him. Number 2. Stilt-Man. First appearing in Daredevil number 8, Stilt-Man was a scientist named Wilbur Day who stole the plans for a hydraulic ram device in order to create telescopic metal legs, which allowed him to tower over the people of New York as Stilt-Man. He used the power of being tall to attack the scientist Carl Caxton multiple times in hopes of stealing the scientist's shrink ray. On one of these occasions, he hoped to use the device to shrink the Golden Gate Bridge, but was defeated by Daredevil and Black Widow. Number 1. The Ventriloquist. When he was a child, Arnold Wesker's parents took him to the Gotham City shipyards to see an albatross. The bird scared Arnold, who demanded to be taken home. While walking home, his parents were run over by a truck full of display dummies. He blamed himself for this and, as a result, bottled up all of his negative emotions like anger. Years later, Arnold had a psychotic break and killed a man during a bar fight and was sent to Blackgate Prison. His cellmate had carved a ventriloquist dummy out of the tree that the prison used to hang its inmates, and Wesker eventually believed that the dummy was talking to him. He killed his cellmate and escaped with a puppet. The puppet renamed himself Scarface, and the two went into a life of crime. Wesker is of course delusional, but his unsettling skill at ventriloquism provides him with an outlet for all of his negative emotions, with the puppet taking on a brutal and psychopathic personality as well as the persona of a 20s gangster.
Number 6. The Reaching Hand. Honestly, what a strange story this one is. It features Batman as an occult detective trying to solve the mystery of Elongated Man's death. Unfortunately, it seems as though Elongated Man wasn't alone in his body, and there was a force of darkness within him who continues to seek to spread gloom and doom wherever it can. This story features a lot of restless nights for Bruce as well, and unfortunately he ends up too late to save Jimmy Olsen. Not Jimmy Olsen, who ends up brutally murdered by Swirly. At least that's what it looks like to me. He's just head down in the toilet and they're like, he's been murdered. Or he was just being mistreated by the other staff at his workplace, but no, he's dead. Death by Swirly. Bruce also is too late to save his friends or Gotham in the end, at least that's what's implied. This one ends pretty bleakly, so yeah. Also, this is back from when we had like Elseworlds, like giant sizes, so there would be like a bunch of short stories in there. Kinda like What If, and I like that style. More stories though than What If, because those are normally 2. Sometimes only 1. Number 5. Elseworld's finest, Supergirl / Batgirl. You can't go wrong with a jacked Joker when it comes to weird multiversal stories. Looking real jacked, baby! Elseworld's finest is weird but also kind of cool. It focuses on Barbara Gordon and Kara Zor-El, Batgirl and Supergirl respectively, who are guardians of Gotham and Metropolis, as in this world, there was never a Batman or a Superman. The two of them team up to take on the manipulative and traitorous Lex Luthor, and as I said, a really swole version of the Joker. It's a strange one, but it's also kind of a great one. Number 4. Batman / the Demon, a tragedy. In this Elseworld story we get to explore a horrifying fantastical world where magic exists. Here, Bruce Wayne is not the Batman, instead suffering from an allergy to moonlight. He is a restless sleeper, and it turns out this is because he's actually bonded to the demon Etrigan. Oh my goodness. It takes Bruce a while to figure this out though, but in the end, he is too late to save his girlfriend Glenda. Poor Glenda. The best thing he can do according to Merlin is to wipe his memory, which will also mean he has no recollection of Glenda. Oh no. Merlin claims that this will save her. Unfortunately, it doesn't, as Etrigan taking over Bruce in the nighttime does end up still killing her. But hey, at least Bruce doesn't remember her, which actually seems to have been Merlin's plan all along. You see, in order to keep the demon trapped within Bruce, his forgetfulness is necessary. There is no way to save Glenda really in any case most likely, and Merlin was just saying that to try to get Bruce to, do what he wanted him to do. But hey, at least Bruce doesn't remember her, so at least he won't be sad about it. Number 3. Brotherhood of the Bat. Have you ever wondered to yourself what the DC universe would be like if every member of the League of Assassins was dressed up and also weirdly happened to resemble Batman? No? Me neither. But too bad, because we get to know what that would be like in this Elseworld story. I mean, not even too bad, it's kind of really great in a weird way. Brotherhood of the Bat takes place in a post-apocalyptic future where Ra's al Ghul decides that the League of Assassins, they need some new costumes. New Bat-themed costumes that all very much resemble alternative takes on Batman's outfits. Also, check out some of the notes on Ra's al Ghul's design sketches here. That is honestly my favorite part of this story. Just seeing all these, like there's like little notes in red. It's like, is this cape too much? You can never have too much cape, just so you know. Just so you know, Raish, no such thing. Number 2, Batman Nosferatu. If you want something weird in a sort of horror-based and very artistic way, we've got you. Batman Nosferatu was actually part of an Elseworld story series that delve into the German Expressionist period. This story seems to take some inspiration from Nosferatu and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Not only is the art style very different and unique, but the whole tone and the style of the dialogue is as well. The story has a lot going on, but mainly it follows the horrors of Dr. Arkham. To give you like the briefest summary ever, because as I said, there's a lot going on in this story, it's also quite long. The story mainly centers around Dr. Arkham and his experiments and creations, including one called the Laughing Man. Oh, I wonder who that's supposed to be. A reanimated creature made from various corpse parts. In the end, Bruce Wayne's son ends up dying and is resurrected as the Nosferatu, sort of cyborg monster creature who ends up taking on and defeating the Laughing Man. I wonder who Nosferatu is supposed to stand for here. Any guesses? Number 1. Batman/Lobo. Like all of the weirdest comic stories out there across the multiverse, this one also features Lobo. Here, Joker hires the mercenary to ruin Batman's reputation and then finally kill his nemesis. Lobo sets out dressed as Batman and begins to muck up the streets, killing Batman's villains in gruesome ways to make sure that people know that Batman is no hero. He's like, what, does Batman have a no-kill policy? Pfft, not anymore. Also, the deaths have to be gruesome because this is a Lobo comic after all, so yeah, they're all pretty... there's something. I don't even know if we can show them here. In the end, the Joker is forced to call off Lobo after it's revealed that Batman is actually his long-lost twin brother, Bruce Wayne. You see, Joey and Bruce were apparently separated at a young age. I mean, does it get any weirder than this? Number 10. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Hush. I actually really love this story, but it's also kinda out there, especially when you consider it has its own sort of theme song and a very creepy tone. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse Hush, Bruce Wayne is the one who becomes a version of the Hush character. It would be more accurate though to say that he becomes a version of Hush and Batman if they were kinda like combined together. Here, Thomas Elliot instead becomes a rich billionaire playboy and also corrupt senator, allying himself with Talia al Ghul. He manages to make it so that Bruce was locked away in Arkham Asylum. Despite feeling slightly guilty about doing this to his childhood friend, overall Elliot is pretty okay with the way Bruce is imprisoned and treated there. However, after faking his death, Bruce Wayne manages to escape Arkham and becomes Elliot's worst nightmare. And just for a fun fact, he doesn't go by Hush in this one though, he's the Silenced. Shh. Get it? Still like Hush. Number 9. JLA the Nail. This is an Elseworld story that centers around a literal nail. The nail in question is one that punches Martha and Jonathan Kent's tire, thereby preventing them from intercepting and adopting little baby Kal-El, who would grow up to become Superman. Or at least he would have grown up to become Superman if that's what happened. In this world, instead, there is seemingly no Superman. As such, Lex Luthor is successful in making the JLA a band of outlaws. Instead of them being celebrated heroes, they're kind of considered to be somewhat criminal, despite of course their noble intentions. What I will say is at least a lot of this artwork is pretty good. Most of the limited series ends up being kinda dull, save for a few scenes and plot points. The parts that I found the most interesting were one where Selina gets therapy while sexy posing on a desk, another being a fight involving Joker with anti-grav mitts versus Batman, which takes place after Joker has successfully killed Batgirl and Robin. Batman ends up broken as a result of the Joker's actions here. We later learn that the Superman of this universe is basically a very sensitive Jimmy Olsen who is bonded with the remaining traces of Kal-El's DNA found in this crash-landed spaceship. Jimmy doesn't like it when people laugh at him. He ends up in a fight with the real Kal-El, another interesting part of the 3-issue series, who it turns out was adopted by the Amish, hence why he never became a hero, as he preferred to stay within his community. So we get an Amish Superman, and then we also get Jimmy Olsen Superman, but he's pretty much evil. Also, what is that costume he's wearing? Sorry Jimmy, I didn't mean to laugh at you. Sorry. Alright friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more multiversal tales, let us know that you love it by giving this video a thumbs up. And also let us know in the comments what other multiversal tales you have loved or you have thought are super weird, or that you loved and thought were weird. I mean, They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Number 8. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Wonder Woman, War of the Gods. I don't even know what to really make of this multiversal story. All I can tell you is buckle in, because this Dark Multiverse story is, yeah, dark. To be fair to this one shot though, I don't really even know what to make of the War of the Gods story in the main continuity, which I also found a little confusing, so it makes sense that this is where I would be as well with the Dark Multiverse version. A little confused. In this story, the Amazons of Themyscira end up in a war with the United States. When Diana is pulled into a battle with Hecate as a result of these events, where in the main continuity Hecate was defeated by Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, here she just ends up planting a seed within Diana's mind. Diana defeats her, but only temporarily. Following the death of Hippolyta, her mother, Diana is left weak, fearful, alone, and resentful, and this is when Hecate is able to take over. Unable to free her, all of Wonder Woman's friends die trying to. The only way to contain Hecate Wonder Woman is with magic, and many of her magical colleagues actually die in the attempt to do so. Hecate as such ends up chained, but of course so is Diana, unable to find the hope to escape her own internal prison. Of course, like most dark multiversal tales, we end on a pretty dark and tragic note. But that's okay, Zatanna's never gonna give up. Number 7. JLA Act of God. Admittedly, this is a cool premise, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense, which is what's weird about it. In JLA Act of God, an Elseworlds 3-issue miniseries, we get to explore a world where all the heroes of Earth have simultaneously lost their powers. Well, at least almost all of them anyways. How did this happen? Black light? Somehow the world being hit with a flash of black light results in almost everyone losing their powers. I guess normally superheroes don't go to raves or anything, where black light is, I feel like, very common. Although this is attributed to the black light, some might call it an act of God. A later on, very suddenly, devoutly Christian Diana Prince at least would probably claim that. Diana, haven't you met gods? How does that make sense? What's really ridiculous is in the first issue, as we go through the moment this happened, the world over, we get to see just how diverse not only everyone's powers are, but also when it comes to the source of their powers, just how diverse it is. In one page we go from Steel losing complete control of his systems and suit as he plummets to his doom, to Aquaman losing his ability to connect with the creatures of the sea telepathically and his ability to breathe underwater. At the same time, Kyle Rayner also has lost control of his Green Lantern ring, which seems to now just be, I guess, a really unique and trendy looking accessory. How could a flash of black light affect almost everyone in this same way? Like I said, it's a cool premise, kinda wonky execution though. How is Steel affected by this? Didn't Steel make his suit? I'm confused. Number 6. Facets. What happens when we get to see the Teen Titans as they'd be in a fantasy setting? Well, a whole lot of weirdness. Raven of course ends up evil, known as a deadly and beautiful sorceress, Queen Raven. She creates her own loyal servant and accomplice with Victor Stone, or at least she tries to, transforming him permanently into a cyborg. It turns out this isn't all that Raven's been up to though. She has a whole collection of prisoners whom she has transformed in some way, and when Cyborg refuses to join her, she also contemplates holding him there with the rest of them. So apparently she does this a lot. Seems like her deals with people don't usually work out. I guess she's just hoping that one day that'll change. She's like, I'll just keep doing it. Eventually someone will be loyal to me. If I try it enough times, it's gotta work. In this story, Coriander is a prisoner of some goblin mages who use cosmic energy to transform her into Starfire. The comic features an all-out battle between Raven and Starfire, joined of course by the rest of the Titans. Nightwing goes on a trip inside Phantasm's cloak, literally looks like he's tripping out, and eventually Trigon joins the party when he is summoned by his daughter Raven. You can check it all out in the 1994 New Titans Annual. It's weird. It's definitely weird. Also, some of these outfits are interesting.
At number 10 is Mr. Mixie-Piddleick. Trust me, Mr. M's abilities are as baffling as they come. This 5th dimensional trickster is a pain in Superman's cape, and his powers, well, they're truly out of this world. Nay, out of this reality. Nay, out of this dimension. See, Mr. Mixie's Piddleick hails from the 5th dimension, and that's where things get really weird. You see, he wields total control over our good old 3D reality. Picture this. He can bend, twist, and manipulate the fabric of our world like it's Play-Doh. You think you're safe, but then boom, your house is made of candy, or you're suddenly wearing your underwear on the outside. Sort of like the ultimate cosmic prankster. But what's even more mysterious is how Soups manages to deal with him. I mean, how do you outsmart a being who can turn your life into a surreal circus? It's a head scratcher for sure. And number 9 is the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary might be a fictional character in the Marvel Universe, but his peculiar powers raise intriguing questions about real-world science. Let's dive into his weird superpower, which is an invention of his known as the Evolutionator. I mean, the Evolutionary Accelerator. Sorry, Dr. Doof. Imagine a machine that could reshape your DNA and turn you into a super being. That's basically what Rocket Raccoon's entire backstory is without all the sentimental stuff. While it sounds far-fetched, we've seen some elements of genetic engineering in the real world, like CRISPR technology, but achieving High Evolutionary's level of power remains a complete sci-fi mystery. Is there a theoretical limit to how much we can manipulate our genes, and what ethical dilemmas could arise if we reshape our bodies and minds at will? These are the questions that scientists and ethicists still grapple with as we navigate towards the unknown frontiers of genetic engineering. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. And number 8 is Darkseid's Omega Beams. Darkseid, the DC Universe's most notorious villain, indeed possesses some fascinating yet perplexing superpowers. And while we're all familiar with his super strength, genius, and invulnerability, it's his Omega Beams that continues to bewilder me. These beams are nothing like anything else in the superhero realm. You see, once Darkseid locks onto a target, those beams won't give up the chase no matter how many twists and turns the target takes. Sort of like a relentless heat-sinking missile, but with a lasery cosmic twist. The Omega Beams can also bring a temporary demise to their victim, turning them into cosmic dust. But the weird part is that Darkseid can bring them back to life, sort of like an undo button. But that's not all. These beams can even act as teleportation devices, whisking someone away to an entirely different location. How the heck do these beams work? I don't know. At number 7, Plastic Man. Plastic Man is often the butt of superhero jokes, but he might soon have his moment in the spotlight with an upcoming movie. But make no mistake, his powers are nothing to scoff at. This guy can do some seriously weird stuff. He's like the ultimate shapeshifter. He can transform his body into any shape, size, or density he wants. Think of turning into a liquid ooze to squeeze through tight spaces, or becoming as solid as rock. And he's not just about appearances, he can mimic other people's faces perfectly. But the weirdest part of it all, that probably has nothing to do with his plasticity powers, is that he's telepathy proof, meaning you can't mess with his mind. And if that's not strange enough, in one Justice League story, he found himself alive 3,000 years in the future because he'd scattered his molecules at the bottom of the ocean. Okay, that's a head scratcher. At number 6 is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's got quite the power set if you ask me. First off, we've got telekinesis. You know, the power to move stuff around with your mind. How can someone manipulate objects without touching them? It's all about unforeseen forces, or maybe some untapped potential locked away in her brain. Then at one point she had time manipulation. Pausing, rewinding, or fast forwarding might sound like science fiction, but who knows, maybe there is a way to play with time that we're not aware of yet. I mean, I guess we'll find out soon. Superpowers like Captain Marvel's might just be out there in the cosmos, but these weird abilities bring a whole new level of mind-blowing to the table. Who knows what other incredible powers are waiting to be discovered in her vast universe of possibilities. At number 5 is Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan may be a little bit socially inept considering he already knows where the conversation is going, but his superpowers are out of this world. He's basically the Superman of the Watchmen universe, only without the cape and charisma, and even more insanely powerful. The dude attained his powers after he was ripped apart molecule by molecule and had to rebuild his body from scratch, so he's completely indestructible and impervious to harm. In fact, he can disintegrate and reassemble himself in the blink of an eye, or even manifest clones of himself spontaneously. But it gets weirder. He can teleport anywhere, which would make your daily commute a breeze. But what's most intriguing is that he could see across time, living in the present, past, and future simultaneously. So he has all the answers. On top of that, he's got telekinesis, and he can take a stroll on the sun, turn you into dust with a mere thought, and even create life. So while he might not be the life of the party, Dr. Manhattan is undeniably the ultimate superhero powerhouse that nobody understands. And number 4 is Mojo. The X-Men's answer to Jabba the Hutt is actually one of the most powerful in the entire X-Men franchise. Seriously. This tubby tyrant is like the mutant version of a couch potato gone wild. First off, Mojo's got this gnarly flying platform that's decked out with lasers. Yeah, you heard me right, lasers. He's like the king of a futuristic skate park, but with deadly beams instead of kickflips. He's also immune to Rogue's knockout touch, which is no joke. Even Captain Marvel couldn't handle that. But here's the kicker, Mojo's craziness is all thanks to centuries of electronic waves. Sort of like he's been binge watching TV for centuries and now he's gone completely bonkers. At number 3 are the Infinity Stones. We all know that the combined might of the 6 MCU Infinity Stones can wipe out or restore half of all life in the universe, or otherwise be used as a free wish for some reason. But what do each of these stones actually do individually? Well, first up we got the Space Stone, or the Tesseract. This blue gem has the power to bend space itself, creating portals and wormholes. Whether it's S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra, everyone's after it for its potential in advanced tech and weaponry. Then there's the Mind Stone, which was housed in Loki's scepter. This little beauty also birthed us Vision and those cool powers the Maximoff twins wielded. But what exactly does it do on its own? Still a little bit of a head scratcher. Next up is the Aether, that's the Reality Stone. Thanos had a field day with it, turning enemies into strange shapes. Ronan was planning to use some major Xandar destruction with the Power Stone, which packs a colossal punch. Doctor Strange was known for keeping a watchful eye on the Time Stone, allowing him to peek into all those possible futures. And lastly, there's the Soul Stone. Well, that's the most mysterious of them all. It demands a hefty sacrifice, but its true power remains hidden. What's it hiding? Who frickin' knows? At number 2 is technopathy, a term you might not have heard of before. It's not some sci-fi mumbo jumbo, it's the real deal, I mean at least in the comic book realm, and it's pretty nuts. You see, our boy Tony Stark, also known as Iron Man, did more than just build that fancy suit. He's not just a tech genius anymore in the comics, he is a full-blown technopath. Now, I keep using that word, so what the heck is a technopath, you ask? Well, it's like this. Tony rewrote his DNA. Yes, his DNA. And gave himself not only a healing factor, think Wolverine without the claws, but he's now able to interface with every darn communication satellite out there using his mind. He can control pretty much any piece of technology remotely, like being the ultimate universal remote control king, except instead of changing the TV channel, he's controlling Iron Man suits and whatnot. And at number 1 is Amazo. Amazo is the android from the DC universe, which is an enigma when it comes to superpowers. Imagine being able to copy and mimic any superpower, becoming an unstoppable force. His abilities are like the ultimate power grab bag. If a superhero can fly, he could do it. If they shoot lasers from their eyes, he's got that covered too. You name it, he replicates it. But here's one interesting exception. Chaos magic. This mystical power is like his kryptonite, able to repel any attack Amazo throws at it. The only chink in this seemingly invincible armor. But the real mystery lies in the extent of his abilities. Can he replicate every single superpower in existence? Is there a limit? The mind-boggling potential of Amazo's powers keeps us guessing, making him one of the most fascinating and superpowered characters in the DC universe.
Number 5, Superman at Earth's End. I don't even know where to begin with this comic. Oh boy. Okay, so Superman here is one of the first iterations of course, the old man heroes to come that we've come to love so much. See, before there was Old Man Logan, there was Old Man Supes. In this Elseworld story, we are in a post-apocalyptic future where machines rule supreme and mutants basically run amok. Also, there is an army of Batmen and vicious biker gangs because, I mean, why not? The year I believe is 2102. So possibly this is what we'll be dealing with in just over 80 years time. Honestly, the way things are going, I could maybe see that being our future. Superman is recharging and recuperating his strength when he hears about the plan to nuke Gotham City. He aims to save the city, but of course without doing any killing, because you know, he's Superman. And of course, no guns, because he's Superman. Except for the part where he uses guns to kill people. Except for that part. Mostly Robo and really bad people though, so I guess for Supes it doesn't count. It features the famous "I am a man" memeable moment, which actually was shouted in response to an android by the way, so out of context it's really weird, but within context it actually like kinda makes some sense. It's still pretty weird, but it's not as weird. Also, shortly after claiming that he doesn't need weapons, Superman chooses to wield a ridiculous mega gun known as the Expunger. It's crazy. I just love that he's like, I don't need weapons because I have powers. I would never do that. And then like flip to like 2 pages later and he's like, look at this giant expunger, I'm gonna use this mega gun. Number 4, All-Star Batman and Robin. Not so much a story as a full series, but I have other full series on this list, so it's fine. All-Star Batman and Robin consists of 10 issues, all of which are pretty weird when it comes to the depiction and characterization of a lot of our favorite superheroes, villains, and their allies even. Once again, we get a super jacked version of Joker in this comic. We also get a version of Vicky Vale who seems far more obsessed with Superman's manhood and dates with Bruce Wayne than any kind of serious reporting. And of course, then there are Batman and Robin. What a dynamic. Batman in this comic is the worst kind of hero, an entitled one. This is the version who refers to himself as the goddamn Batman and makes Dick eat rats and sleep in the Batcave initially. Because he's Batman and he can do that. He also torments Hal Jordan Green Lantern by painting himself, Robin, and the entire room and corridor yellow, and also serves and consumes yellow food and drink around him, with Batman enjoying some lemonade and Robin devouring what appears to be an all yellow ice cream cone. All-Star Batman and Robin has to be one of the weirdest multiverses out there. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, what is happening? What is this characterization? Number 3, JLA Created Equal. Okay, so All-Star Batman and Robin is the not so great kind of weird, but JLA Created Equal is just the weird kind of weird. In this 2-part Elseworld story, we get a glimpse into a world where all the men, or almost all the men, were killed off by an unexpected and sudden plague. The only 2 left alive are Superman and Lex Luthor in this reality, and yet for all the powerful women who remain, this book sure manages to still be about the male characters within it. In Created Equal, Superman attempts to help the rest of the new, almost all-female JLA figure out a way to repopulate the Earth. I say almost because Superman's still there, so yeah. The main concern is how to ensure the survival of the human male gender, as if they made clones, with their technology and resources, they'd actually only be able to produce female ones. I guess they can't like tamper with the genes, they can't like tamper with the DNA, or I don't know how you make clones anyway, so I probably shouldn't tell other people how to do it. Eventually, Lois Lane and Clark Kent end up conceiving a son who is born and named Adam. He accidentally hugs his mother to death, and then Lex, being Lex, unleashes a plan to take control of all the young men who were created and raised on Themyscira, thanks to Adam's existence and his resilience. Also, he makes them all bald, because this is Lex Luthor, so yeah. Oh, what a weird story. Come and join me, and also I'll be bald, because you all have lovely hair and it offends me. Number 2, Batman Reptilian. Ah yes, the story of an alien baby that belongs to Killer Croc because he was influenced by aliens while inside his mother's womb, which is how he's even mutated and also makes him like, I guess, a hybrid alien-human creation technically. In this beautiful yet bizarre story, Batman is attempting to track down whoever is killing all of his rogues. What he finds out though is that it isn't any one of the other villains, but Croc's baby that he just gave birth to. Killer Croc of course didn't know that he could do that. I mean, neither did we. It turns out that this is a result of him being part alien in origin, or being tampered with by aliens when he was like a fetus. The newborn babe, it turns out, just wants its mama, but for what purpose remains to be seen. Killer Croc can't nurture it, as you know, he doesn't have like the biological equipment for that. After we get through that whole slog of that's not gonna work, it's also implied that the giant alien monster baby wants Croc to mate with it. which is also thankfully out of the question when it comes to Croc's willingness, so thank goodness, because I thought, this better not be where this is going, oh my goodness. Did I mention that Batman is also a huge jerk throughout this entire series? Cause yeah, this is Garth Ennis behind the writing wheel, and that is very much a thing. Which I'm not surprised by, that's kind of Ennis' whole thing, so yeah. I actually like Batman being a butt in that story more than I like him being a butt in Frank Miller's All-Star, so yeah. Number 1, Batman Last Night on Earth. This one was where the thumb came from in part 1 of this list. I had intended to actually include this story there, but then I got distracted by the Batman and Lobo crossover. Understandably so, I think, because that's also super weird. But that's fine, because it just means that Last Night on Earth gets a higher spot on this list of bizarre multiversal DC stories. Batman Last Night on Earth is a book that exists outside of the continuity and belongs to the DC Black Label line. Also, Reptilian is part of that same line, just so you know. Black Label primarily is made up of titles that are more adult in terms of their content and their themes. Here, that translates to Batman wearing a straitjacket version of his suit in a post-apocalyptic future, where Joker is just a head in a jar. They also end up fighting giant monster baby Green Lantern constructs in issue number 1, just to give you a sense of the level of weird that we're dealing with here. But it's like a fun weird. It's like a, I'd recommend this weird. I give it 2 weird thumbs up.
Alright, number 10, Bat-Mite. If you've heard of the extremely weirdly named Mr. Mxyzptlk, then you have a small understanding of the reality warping imps who inhabit the 5th dimension. This Batman megafan is basically a small childlike imp who wears a loosely fitting homemade bat suit with a black lightning bolt symbol. But don't let his goofy looks trick you. He has nearly limitless magical abilities. He's not technically a hero, but he's also definitely not strictly a villain. A being of this level of power can't really be either, because there's no way it would lose in whatever it wanted to do. He idolizes Batman and just wants to see him in action. So when Batman gets angry with him for being a nuisance, he usually sets things straight and just leaves, which is honestly kind of adorable. Number 9, Dino-Cop. We have a few anthropomorphized characters on this list, but none of the others are dinosaurs. Dino-Cop is from Earth 41, which is an Earth containing characters who are all pastiches of heroes from Image Comics. He is Rex Stegman, a humanoid dinosaur-like character who is also a police officer, supposed to be the DC equivalent to Savage Dragon. He is absolutely dedicated to preserving the peace in his undinosaur blue-collar worker way. He teams up with another superhero from Earth 41, Spore, who is supposed to be like Spawn, but more planty. I don't think his powers really matter too much when we talk about the weirdness of this character, but they are super strength. That's kind of it. He has increased stamina and is kind of pretty intelligent, but you know, nothing super. I think a dinosaur man hybrid police officer is weird enough to make this list on his own, so there you go. Number 8, the Magic Lantern. So take Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and give him the powers of Green Lantern and you've got the Magic Lantern of Earth 47. When it's groovy, when it's grim, we hum the living guru's hymn. When other lanterns lose their shit, we keep the Magic Lantern lit. I'm sure it's not the only thing that's lit. I wish I could just make this point a bunch of the stoner Green Lantern quotes. Hostility is for squares. Get with the blueprint. Are we groovy? Or do I gotta kick your non-Euclidean alien butts into the galaxy next door? The Magic Lantern is the Green Lantern to the Earth 47 Justice League, known as the Love Syndicate, whose members include Sunshine Superman, Shooting Star instead of Batman, Speed Freak, Brother Power, and the Geek. And they first appeared in Animal Man number 23, and were expanded upon in the Multiversity Guidebook. And every time I see them, I just want to be a part of it. Number 7, Danny the Street. Yeah, no, I think this is the wildest concept for a hero I have ever heard of. In case you didn't clue in, or for that matter, actually didn't believe it, Danny the Street is a living sentient street who can teleport to any city in the world. He was first introduced in Doom Patrol Volume 2, number 35 in 1990, and his main purpose and drive in this world is to bring happiness to those who inhabit whatever city he is currently at, giving those who have nowhere to go a place to rest their heads. It's nice. He likes to cross-dress and dress himself in nice pink frilly decorations on some of his buildings, including weapon stores. He eventually became the headquarters of Doom Patrol. At one point, he grew to be Danny the World, and then he was deconstructed down to just Danny the Brick, and was even just the humble Danny the Alley at one point. Even saying that sentence makes me feel like, what am I doing with my life? I'm talking about awesome sentient streets. Mom would be proud. Number 6. David Dibble. David Dibble dibble-dabbled in some kind of dubious scientific debauchery which decidedly turned him into Dig Dabby. Turned him into Big Baby, otherwise known as Behemoth. Hailing from Earth 8, where there are characters that seem to be DC's parody for Marvel characters. As part of the Retaliators, genius alternate name for the Avengers, Behemoth is basically the Hulk, turning from a scientist into an extremely strong monster. Only the unfortunately named David Dibble, instead of turning into a green savage beast, turns into a giant blue mega baby. While he used to have a dumbed down intelligence when transformed, he has managed to recover his intelligence over time, just like how Marvel's Green Goliath did the same. The baby part of this is probably the strangest part, but it does reflect how Hulk basically acts like a tantruming toddler when he transforms. Number 5. Etrigan, or Etrigan. Or Etrigan, or Etrigan. He could be considered really cool or really weird, honestly. Etrigan rocketed to an Earth of eternal twilight from the doomed planet of Camelot. Who does that sound like? Maybe another hero who rocketed to Earth from another planet that starts with a K? They sound similar because Etrigan is an alternate version of Superman with quote-unquote overnatural abilities. From Earth 13, a planet of the supernatural and occult. Etrigan fights evil in Merlin's name alongside the League of Shadows as the Super Demon. Together, the League of Shadows faced off against an invasion of super vampires. And later, Etrigan became part of the Supermen of the multiverse, targeted by prophecy, and allies with them to come up with a plan to free the other alternate Supermen. A demon Superman is weird, but he won't be the weirdest alternate Superman to hit this list. Number 4. Yankee Poodle. I think I could effectively choose any one of the characters from the animal universe of Earth-C for this point, but of all the characters a part of the Zoo crew, Ali Cadabra, Captain Carrot, Little Cheese, none really make me say, what? Quite like Yankee Poodle. Gossip journalist Rova Barkett, an anthropomorphic poodle, see what I did there? Would moonlight as Yankee Poodle, a superhero with the powers of magnetic manipulation that for some reason allowed her to shoot semi-solidified electromagnetic blue-colored stars with her right hand, push things away, and generate red and white stripes with her left hand in order to bring things to her. I don't know. If she put these powers together though, she can generate highly destructive magno-blasts. But for me, the best use of her power is she could travel by forming a ramp of stripes in front of her while propelling herself along it by shooting stars behind her. No, I didn't make any of that up, just so we're clear on that. Number 3. Robert Rogers. This one has got a fun little twist. So, back in 2002, DC teamed up with Stan Lee of Marvel Comics fame, and together they released the Just Imagine series, which is basically, why don't we let Stan Lee come and make a bunch of characters with the ideas of DC characters? It is actually honestly a great idea. One of those characters ended up being Robert Rogers from Just Imagine Shazam #1. And yes, he is Stan Lee's Shazam. When I tell you he is absolutely nothing like the regular Shazam, I ain't kidding. I mean, other than saying Shazam to activate his powers. For starters, he is not a kid. He is actually an agent with Interpol, and he is assigned to the tough agent Carla Norell, who together go to India to hunt down criminal Gunga Khan. Secondly, he is empowered by the wizard Merlin to hunt down Morgana Le Fay. And finally, when he yells the word Shazam, he transforms into a giant, hairy, red-fanged creature with a necklace of bones. Gosh, I love Stan Lee. Number 2. Milkman Man. The DC Universe Wiki says that Milkman Man is an imperfect copy of Superman. Excuse me, DC Wiki? This is an improved copy of Superman. All that calcium, strongest bones you've ever seen, I bet. In JLA/Doom Patrol special, the Doom Patrol has discovered that an interdimensional corporation called Retco has been stealing stories, reconfiguring them, and repackaging them for new markets. Retco has embedded itself into the current continuity, using the radioactive milk of psychic cows to quell the more dangerous impulses of the Justice League and turn them into heroes safe for the masses. That is literally the quote from the official summary. I am not even joking. Milkman Man has all the same powers as the famous Kryptonian superhero, only he's a milkman, and central part of the Community League of Rhode Island, a sinister group of pleasant-spoken normal folks. Please just do yourself the favor of reading this story and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Number 1. KFC. Okay, it's weird enough that we have Colonel Sanders in the mainline continuity, but after his adversary Colonel Sanders takes the memory of all but the second of KFC's 11 herbs and spices from Sanders' brain, he is visited by Colonel Arla Sanders of Earth 11, who relays some information. 1. Apparently, every Colonel Sanders variant in the multiverse is close with the Flash of that universe, which is weird. Number 2, she remembers a different herb and or spice from the recipe, meaning every alternate Colonel will remember a different herb or spice, which is weirder. And number 3, with the help of her Flash and her cosmic treadmill, they're going across the multiverse to form the multiversal team of Colonel Sanders, which is the weirdest part. There's Colonel Gaslight, Colonel from Kingdom Come, the future Colonel Ladd, Bizarro Colonel, Teen Titans Colonel, Comrade Sanders, and a Wild West Sanders. But my absolute favorite, and one that should make absolutely no sense, and if you really think about it, is kind of sick and twisted, is the anthropomorphic Chicken Sanders from the post-apocalyptic Earth 51, whose second line is literally Bach! Appetite. What the Bach? Number 10. The Wonder Twins. Oh, super friends. Sometimes you just introduce characters that are only a good idea in a kids show. Jaina and Zan are alien twin sister and brother from the planet Exor, who have these super cool sounding power rings that activate when they fist bump and say Wonder Twins power activate. It sounds so cool, and it sorta is. Jaina can turn into any animal she chooses with her power. That's neat. But it's not as spectacular for Zan, who can only turn into water in one of its forms. He can turn into H2O, steam, or ice. Honestly, I could see it being used in some pretty cool ways, which is why they are so high up on this list, but still rather unique. Number 9. Doll Man. Alright, so we take the G.I. Joe toy and Jada Pinkett Smith and we will make them superheroes. With the power to shrink down to 6 inches tall while retaining the strength of a full-grown man, Daryl Dane, Doll Man, with his partner Martha Roberts, Doll Girl, is a founding member of the Freedom Fighters. He would fight crime during the 1940s and in World War II. That was when he first appeared in All-Star Squadron number 60 in August of 1986. More recently, the power of size manipulation had a psychological effect on him, causing him to be confined to a mental institution and then trapped in his 6-inch size with other soldiers of similar height in a miniature world. Until, get this, they fuse together as a mega monster form which just looks and sounds terrifying. Anyone ever seen Toy Soldiers? I love that movie back in the day. I am Archer, emissary of the Gorgonites. No, I'm Adam, emissary of Top 10 Nerd. And if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to smack that like button. It helps us know that you like us, right? I don't know. Number 8. Prez. Prez Rickard. A teenager born to literally become president. He was the youngest president ever elected thanks to the lower eligibility age in his comic book, Prez #1 in 1973. As the young president, he fought legless vampires, a right-wing militia led by the descendants of George Washington, and evil chess players. His powers include advanced hand-to-hand combat, leadership, political science, and a healthy dash of charisma. His mother, Martha, another DC Martha mom, was his vice president, with his sister becoming his secretary and his Native American friend Eagle Free being appointed as head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Honestly, a pretty strange character, but also super inspiring, especially for younger readers, I'm guessing. Number 7. Uncle Sam. The spirit of America, bound to a talisman created by the founding fathers in an occult ritual, who would take physical form by merging with a dying patriot. And he needs you and your money. Pretty please. He lives as long as America does and has taken part in every American conflict. He was the Minuteman in the Revolutionary War. In the Civil War, he split into 2, Johnny Reb and Billy Yank, and in 1870 he officially became the Uncle Sam we all know and recognize. He's fought in World War I and World War II. Unsurprisingly, Uncle Sam's powers are proportionate to the United States' faith in the ideals of liberty and freedom. And that list of powers is long, so of course, I will struggle to list them all out for you. Possession, immortality, interdimensional teleportation, invulnerability, limited clairvoyance, super leaping, size alteration, superhuman reflexes, superhuman speed, superhuman stamina, and last but not least, superhuman strength. Oh, and most importantly, he can detect the whereabouts of patriotic objects like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So watch out, Nicolas Cage. Number 6. Canterbury Cricket. After The Flash rewrote history in Flashpoint, this interesting character came to be in Flashpoint: The Canterbury Cricket #1 in 2011. Jeremy Cricky, not to be confused with Jiminy Cricket, I'm sure, was a university student and con man until the Amazons attacked the country of England. He takes refuge in the Canterbury Cathedral, but was tracked by an Amazonian soldier. He begs for his life from God when boom chicka bow, a flash of light appears, caused by boo booms dropped from the Amazon ships. And when the dust settles, Jeremy has become the giant anthropomorphized cricket. Honestly, the newly dubbed Canterbury Cricket, Jeremy had become a patriotic hero, fighting for England until his last cricket chirp. Truly the best representation of the nation. America gets Uncle Sam, England gets a cricket. Number 5. Flex Mentalo. I mentioned the Doom Patrol in the last video, but we didn't actually talk about any of their members. We honestly should. One member, who I think deserves to make it onto this list, is Flex Mentalo. Flex here has the mysterious and hilarious power of muscle mystery, which allows him to alter reality by flexing different muscles. For example, flexing his scalenus minimus, Flex has the ability to survive in the vacuum of space for an extended amount of time. His other powers include enhanced senses, mind control, precognition, reality alteration, superhuman durability, superhuman strength, and telepathy. He is a close friend of Danny the Street, who was also in the last video, and his reviews on Google note him to be sweet and helpful. He first appeared in Doom Patrol in Volume 2, number 35 in 1990, and I think my favorite piece of art is the one with the title of Hero of the Beach, with someone in the background going, it's Flex Mentalo. Number 4. Dog Welder. Now look, weird isn't always pleasant. Unfortunately, for all of us, Dog Welder is about as bad as he sounds. He's a crime fighter, yes, a do-gooder, who haunts and maims evildoers by welding no longer living dogs to them. Dog Welder is a mysterious and demented member of Section 8, a superhero team, and he first appears in Hitman number 18. He keeps his face hidden behind a welding mask, and we never learn his true identity, but he seems to live in an alleyway that he sets traps for animals in. He also seems to have an endless supply of dogs of the afterlife to stick to people's faces. Even though he is apparently a hero, I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief knowing he met his demise in Section 8's final battle, and we don't need to see him again, ever. Alright, let's move on. Number 3. Matter Eater Lad. When an alien race has all their food infected by microbes, instead of going extinct, as you might expect, they evolve to be able to eat unlimited amounts of any form of matter to survive instead. Yes, welcome to Planet Pepto-Bismol. Oh, sorry, no, just Bismol. Home to Legion of Superheroes member Tenzil Kem, better known as Matter Eater Lad. The 15th member to join the Legion, Matter Eater has an ability you just wouldn't think would be useful. But if you get stuck inside somewhere, I can guarantee you want this guy on your team. He can eat through literally anything due to digestive enzymes. Thanks to how comic books just are, this ability has become more and more useful and in very random ways. For example, Bismolians don't possess any other superpowers really, but the ability to eat tons and tons of anything and digest it in literally seconds apparently translates into food energy that can give them, oh I don't know, super speed for example, or like when he ate through a whole asteroid in minutes. I just don't want to imagine how his bathroom breaks go. No thanks. Number 2. Leisel Pond. The Green Lantern Corps, actually every Lantern Corps really, has members of all different shapes and sizes. But what utterly baffles me personally is knowing the Green Lanterns have a super intelligent, justice-seeking smallpox virus on their roster. Assigned to Section 119, Leisel wasn't really able to join the other Lanterns in team meetings on the Green Lantern world, for the same reason your boss asks you to stay home if you've got a cold. The Green Lanterns aren't trying to get sick, really. Leisel Pond's partner in Sector 119 was Remus. Because Remus was a fatal victim of Despotellus, who is also a sentient virus, but part of the Yellow Lantern Corps, so evil. Despotellus infected Guy Gardner, and wanting revenge for the attack on her sector and the loss of Remus, Leisel Pond entered into Guy, and the two battled with Leisel Pond, defeating the virus and capturing Despotellus, who Leisel brought back to Oa for the Green Lantern Corps Dr. Saranik Natu to work on a vaccine for. Number 1. Red Bee. When I think of all the animals that would make good sidekicks or super pets, bees are not my first choice. Think about it. As soon as they sting you, that's it. You need another bee to replace that one. Well, ain't it just the fitting coincidence that the trained bees used by Red Bee are a species of bee that don't die when they sting people. Not wasps though. They're bees, okay? Not wasps. Richard Raleigh, the first Red Bee, was a superhero during World War II that used a weapon that fired a sting shot. Ouch! And inside his utility belt, he carried a swarm of bees that he would use against villains. Again, someone tell Nicolas Cage to watch out. He first appeared in Hit Comics #1 in the 1940s. The second Red Bee would be his great niece, Jenna Raleigh. This Red Bee used 2 mechanical bees that fire electricity, a tech suit, and was mutated by alien insects to produce pheromones that she can use to control her bees. At least that makes more sense than training a colony of bees. Right? I don't know. Alright, you little nerds, there you have it.